Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly tweeted the development this morning. She said Canada decided to temporarily suspend operations in Sudan. Joly said Canadian diplomats are safe and working from outside the country. She added she and her colleagues remain in regular contact with Canadians affected by the crisis. Global Affairs Canada also issued a statement saying the situation in Sudan has rapidly deteriorated, making it impossible to safeguard the safety and security of staff in Khartoum. It says its embassy will resume operations as soon as it's safe to do so. The Canadian government said in a statement yesterday evening that Canadians in Sudan should continue to shelter in place. It said with airports and airspace closed, evacuations are not possible at this time. Meanwhile, the head of the Sudanese Canadian Communities Association is calling on the federal government to create a program for members seeking to sponsor relatives who are either stuck in Sudan or have fled to bordering countries. Nearly 1,600 Canadians are registered as being in Sudan. Saudi Arabia said some Canadians were among a group of 66 foreign nationals that evacuated from the country yesterday, but it's unclear how many were Canadian. Albert Delatala, CBC News, Toronto.
Meantime, the UK has launched a military operation to get British embassy staff out of Sudan. The CBC's Dominic Velitis is tracking that story from London.
This was, according to Britain's Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, a complex and rapid operation. We're told British diplomats and their families were taken to an airfield just outside of the capital, Khartoum, and flown out of the country overnight. The response to what Sunak described as a significant escalation in violence and threats to embassy staff in Sudan. The British Ministry of Defence has released some further details about the scale of this operation, which it described as difficult. It said more than 1,200 personnel from 16 Air Assault Brigade, the Royal Marines and the Royal Air Force were involved, and they acted alongside military personnel from the United States, France and other unnamed allies. So diplomats and their families are out. There is, however, still a significant number of British citizens in Sudan. The news for them is hardly encouraging. They're being told to register their details with the Foreign Office, take shelter and wait. It's not immediately clear what is going to happen in terms of getting them out of the country. Yesterday, the head of Sudan's army, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, pledged to evacuate all foreigners out of the country on military planes. We were told that was going to happen. It obviously didn't. Why? We don't know. So for now, British citizens in Sudan, like other nationalities there, are being advised to sit tight and wait. Dominic Velitis, CBC News, London.
U.S. President Joe Biden announced last night that American diplomats and their families have been airlifted from Sudan's capital. He says he is getting regular reports from his team on their work to help Americans still in Sudan, and says he's working with allies and partners on the effort. The U.S. Embassy in Sudan is now closed. The evacuation of foreign nationals comes as fighting between rival military factions has increased over the past week. Hundreds are dead and thousands wounded. For more on the situation in Sudan, we go now to Patrick Oyet. He joins us from Juba in neighboring South Sudan. Patrick, thank you for joining us. Can you give us an update on the fighting on the ground?
Yes, fighting is still ongoing, and it is very, very difficult for many Sudanese people because their situation is getting worse. Whatever little food they had in the house is now over. Water is not there. People are now consuming untreated water. And then also we are hearing reports of internet outage in most parts of the country. That is now very much worrying because it means coordination between those inside Sudan and those outside will become more difficult. And even it is more worrying if in case there is a total outage. And also we've seen previously, like when a coup happened in Sudan before, even telephone networks were not really working. So if internet is already going down, there's a possibility of phone networks also following suit, and that will pose a very, very big challenge to people to coordinate even when they want to provide some humanitarian assistance. And also hospitals are not working fully. We are told a number of hospitals have been closed, and the supply, the medical store that supplies like drugs to the hospital has totally been bombed. There are no supplies. The private hospitals are also working halfway because some do not have enough medical personnel. Some who have some medical personnel also have a problem because they do not have supplies of drugs. The private pharmacies that could supply them have also been closed. So the situation is really still very challenging for the Sudanese and everybody else who is trapped in the Sudan.
Okay, Patrick, thank you for the update. We do appreciate this. Patrick Oyet reporting for us in Juba, South Sudan.